Welcome to Pleasure as Prayer, remembering the sacred connection between women's health, sexuality, and spirituality. My name is Aimee Murphy, and I am your host. And today, I am so excited to be here with Anaiya Sophia. Anaiya is a mystic, storyteller, and author of Revelatory wisdom. She teaches workshops throughout the world and is best known for the creation of Sacred Body Awakening. Welcome, Sophia.
Thank you so very much. So wonderful to be here.
It's so wonderful to bask in your wise, playful, feminine yumminess. I'm so thrilled you agreed to be on a part of this series with me.
Oh, thank you.
And I just wanted to loop back around to the first time you and I chatted about this series. And you were saying something pretty prophetical about this time that we're living in and the rise of the mystics. Will you say more about that?
Yes. I've just been doing a series of storytelling, which coincided with, all of us going down into lockdown. And I was seeing the posts that people, that my nearest and dearest were making. A lot of fear, a lot of conspiracy, a lot of fighting between one another. And I thought, oh, I need to bring some storytelling so that, the story is the last thing they do before falling into the arms of sleep. And that'll give their mind, just an off moment from social media, and to be reminded of the huge heroic acts that us humans have produced at 2 minutes to midnight. So I started doing my research, and I noticed time and time again, the most famous mystics that we know, let's just say Francis of Assisi, Clare of Assisi, Teresa of Avila, Thecla, all of these mystics, they totally had their moment in times of plague. And when plague was here, whether it's the Spanish flu, the Black Death, or just the plague, if you go back to England, they would go out in a rather big way to those who were suffering. And they'd go out with no masks, with no gloves. Now, I'm not advocating any of this, obviously. I'm just making sure we all know what our ancestors have been up to during times very, very similar to this. And they would go into like an ecstatic prayer, embodied ecstatic prayer, praying for union, praying for protection, and praying to be able to serve the community at the greatest possible level. So I just thought this is interesting, that many mystics really showed their face when there was a plague around.
Yes. Thank you for sharing about that. You talked about a statue. So in The Pleasure of Holy Ecstasy,
Yes.
you were talking about a sculpture that you saw in a church, and that image has come into my awareness. I haven't seen the image, but I can just imagine what it looks like because of your awe of having experienced that. Will you speak to that?
Absolutely. Well, it's Saint Teresa of Avila, and I saw the statue in Rome. I think it's been, I can't remember his name at the moment, but a very well-known Italian Renaissance sculptor. And Teresa is lying down on her back. She is totally opening up her throat. She's totally lifting up with her breastbone, and her lips are slightly parted and her eyes have rolled back into her head. And I believe there's beautiful imagery with the sense of like a translucent dress. She is in a nun's habit, but there's beauty there. There's something very feminine about what she's actually wearing. I think maybe something like, one shoulder has fallen off. And it's actually called The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. And again, and this is when we were having our conversation, I said, this is what I want to bring. I want to bring that holy ecstasy. And, I've had a few little tasters myself. Yes, ma'am. It is everything I've been searching for, expecting to find, in the arms of the beloved, a flesh and blood other. But this was self-generated. This ecstasy came through prayer, devotion, worship, and just like going through those barriers that say, I can't pray in this way. Oh, yes, I can. I can't pray to receive holy presence through my spine. Oh, yes, you can. I can't imagine that, I'm in the arms of Christ or the Holy Spirit, and this is a bodily experience. Oh, yes, I can. So it just kept going and going and going. And the whole thing was fueled by prayer and wanting, needing to be closer. More penetration, more surrender. Like things like, I want to feel you in the deepest marrow of my coccyx. I want to feel you squidging in between my toes. I want to feel you seeping your way down into my calf muscle. Seriously. And that's when I knew these hints that's in art and sculpture, and definitely the autobiographies. This is a very, very real thing. I know of a handful of men who had the ecstatic experience, but it's mostly the women.
Wow. What do you think is the thread that is common with all the women that opened up to that level experience?
Well, to me, it is an absolute. Back in those days, a lot of this is Middle Ages and medieval times.
Oh, okay.
A lot of ladies turned to the church to escape getting married, because otherwise it's going to be an arranged marriage. So what I feel they did is they moved that energy from what was going to be in the direction of husband and family, and they just kind of went, ah, and they just sent it in the direction of the divine. And so a lot of these mystical experiences were of these women marrying Jesus, even, with rings that also appeared on their flesh fingers. There's a lot of mystical saints who had a vision of marrying Christ and waking up with a flipping ring on their finger. Saint Catherine of Alexandria. She's a saint that we find in the Sinai Monastery in Egypt. She's wearing a ring that is not of the earth. And, her hand is in this monastery, and once a year her hand comes out where you can kiss her dead hand, and the ring is still on her finger.
Wait, you can literally kiss her bones, her what
I
has been flesh.
found myself doing that. I love St. Catherine's Monastery. One day, randomly, I went with a couple of friends and we found ourselves being hustled into the main church. There's a procession going on. People are very, very excited. And, you just moved along with the crowd. And then suddenly I'm stood before a Greek Orthodox priest who hands me a hand on I'll always remember it, a dark purple velvet cushion. Suddenly, but the thing is, the skin was still tight. It was a bit grey looking. Fingernails were intact. The hand was slender and so obviously female. I didn't know it was St. Catherine's hand. And the ring was still there. So I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. And I gave it a kiss. And then later, much later, I found out whose hand it was and what that ring, where it came from.
So the custom is to kiss the ring.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So will you tell us a little bit about St. Catherine and why you're so drawn to her?
I love all the Christian mystics, or any old mystic actually. I love goddesses. I love holy women, but there's something really fabulous about the mystic. The mystic has this direct epiphany, this direct revelatory experience. And it's like a great big rocket goes off inside of them. And they have this purpose, they have this mission. And it's often very, very frightening what they have been compelled to do. But they do it anyway. And like, for instance, not so much Catherine of Alexandria, but Thecla, a mystic going back to Rome and Italy. So she has been brought into the arena, if you can imagine, Colosseum, and she's being not fed, but she is there as food for the animals, because she's practicing an early form of Christianity. And so out come 3 lions and 1 bear. So it really looks like this is her end moment. But the lioness bounds right up to her, sniff, 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 gets down on her haunches and starts licking Thecla's feet. So this isn't a 2 minutes to midnight scenario. This is a 2 seconds to midnight. And Thecla is praying. Then the lioness turns on the other 2 lions and protects Thecla from their approach. And then she kind of like sends them back into their den. And then she turns on the bear. And the bear kind of like, okay, well, I'm not really hungry after all. And he just kind of rolls over and just starts licking his paws. This is like real life stories of this woman in this ecstatic prayer. This is not a fingers crossed, I hope for the best type prayer. This is a full on, this is what's going to happen. This is not my time. I don't care that there's 4 savage wild beasts who are hungry, prowling around me. This is not my time. And I read that and I go, oh God, I don't know what's more ecstatic. Going into holy ecstasy or reading these stories of very normal and everyday women.
Speaking of, I am so curious how pleasure as prayer shows up in your life. What has called you forward? What has beckoned you in your life's path towards this direction?
I recently had a fabulous little chat with Charles Eisenstein about ecocide before this lockdown happened. And he was quite adamant, but in a very beautiful way, saying, I do not feel that any of us, myself included, himself, that we can yet articulate what it is we are visioning and hoping for and intend on creating. Because we were talking about Extinction Rebellion and all the protests that were rising up sort of February time. And he was saying, I don't even think they can actually articulate what they're protesting for. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I haven't got a clue either. But still, just because we can't articulate it doesn't mean it's not there. So I started to feel that place that didn't have words. And so I started to dance or move, express with my body that non-articulating vision, essence, aliveness, beingness to be. So a part of me that's not quite here yet, but is already on its way. And I've been doing that since February to really exquisite pieces of music like Endless Melancholy or Exit Strategy, just really music. And that is up there with St. Teresa of Avila. Because it's like, it's a part of me that's not yet fully formed. Well, far from fully formed. And it's the same feeling as if it was like a God prayer. It's amazing. I really do recommend. Another thing I've been thinking about, what is it we're going to walk out into after lockdown? And I've even been saying to people, hold a vision, do not move from your vision, do not let doubt enter this vision. But the thing is, when I try to do it, I can't flipping visualize it yet. Because I know how potent this vision will be should I dare vision it. But I'm holding back because I know it's just going to go, bah, manifestation. And the truth is, I don't feel I have the wisdom yet to know what to visualize. But that doesn't stop me dancing, if you know what I mean.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot to be with. I'm so grateful for how you expressed that and your humility around that piece. Oh, I'm curious if you have any practices that you invite into your daily life that may be of support to others who want to remember how to hold that level of prayer that's so surrendered and ecstatic. I'm curious if you have any insight that other people may glean from.
One of my all-time favorites is what I call the sacred marriage work. So if you can imagine being cross-legged, and on each knee we have a hand, and on the right side, the whole of the right body, we can imagine this is the self that we know and love. So this is the self before lockdown. And on the left-hand side, whole body, shoulder to foot, we have the part that's like a fledgling. It's coming into form. It carries the codes, it carries the wisdom, it carries the elegance of this new world that's kind of like breathing. It's not quite here yet, but it's breathing. And so I often imagine that this left-hand side goes first, picks up the old, more cumbersome self, brings that one to the midline, and gives that self the impression of, I am big and strong and mighty enough to hold you and feel me. And so then I put that one back on the knee. I'm doing a really fast version here. Then I go back. And now this one takes off and crosses the midline and brings that, let's say, the sacred self to the midline. And then there's like a little union here. So there's no war, there's no battle. There's no there's not room for you, only me exists. So that's very, very heartfelt, and that always produces tears. Then you put that one down, but this is what we're really looking for. We're looking for that moment, the third aspect, the third part, which is where the sacred marriage has happened, and now you're in the presence of it all. And that one doesn't have a face. It doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have a form. It's just like the living presence of the union. So what happens when these two merge? It's like a formless, faceless, genderless, ageless presence. That is a very nice, nifty way of getting out of any form of duality. So you could even do this in relationship. You could have your partner on one hand, you on the other. And it just brings everything together. You could have a light side, a dark side. You could have a external self, internal self, divine self, human self. So wherever there's a strong sense of staunch duality, this one will break you down and bring forth that third aspect.
Mm. Thank you. That was gorgeous. I was doing it with you, just feeling my different hands being held
Yeah.
by each other, emerging.
If you play I'm really into music. If you play two pieces of music that really capture the essence of what the two hands are representing, oh my gosh, transformational every time.
So you go through the practice with a song.
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
letting the song kind of be the conduit of the energy.
Yes. The atmosphere, the lyrics, if there's lyrics. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a big player, the music.
Yes, I'm very much moved by the music.
Yeah.
Very much the canvas of which my life really becomes clear to me.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I just wanted to kind of move into maybe the beginning years of Anaiya Sophia, and what your maybe a sexual awakening looked like, and maybe something other women might be able to relate to, or recognize maybe the pieces that they
Yes,
get to
yes,
honor
yes.
in themselves.
I must say that sexual opening encounter was with my first husband. And our relationship was controversial. So if anyone knows my past, they'll be like, oh, she's mentioning him. Well, yes, I am mentioning him because it was with him that I had this opening, this, gosh, the love was just off the chart. The depth of heart and the realization that that level of love could follow into the sexual act. Because previous to this, my sexuality was very passionate, very raunchy, very in the body, a lot of huffing, a lot of puffing. You know what I'm saying? We had that, but we had the love equal to that. This was a roomy shams love. It was a frightening love. I didn't know I could love that much. So you got these two massive energies, passion and love. And we were both playing around with prayer. What if we really reach our crescendo of human passion and love, and then at the last moment, flip it into a unified prayer to actually go the extra mile, straight into the lap of God, straight into the fields of heaven, whatever you want to care to mention. And so, blimey, we were very compatible. Well, for me, spiritually and emotionally. I knew that this man prayed well. And that, to me, that was quite a very interesting attribute. So we kind of had those energies, love, power, and wisdom. And, you know, this sounds like, wow, brilliant. You know, how long were you guys together? A year. It was an awful amount of energy to have. And we were not able to maintain it. We didn't know what we had. I know, looking back now, in hindsight, I can see what we had. We were not, I don't know if worthy is the right word, we were not mature enough and humble enough to be with that level of energy and awakening in one another. And so our time together was very brief, but memorable. And that's the honest truth. You know, I can't say it was anyone else. It wasn't. It was him.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Mm.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to add to wrap up the interview?
I would like to just add how vulnerable, exciting, scary, and innocent I am finding this phase we're in now, which is the coming out of lockdown and going back into the world and seeing all of these new changes. And I would like to say to myself and everyone listening, remember the depth of prayer, the depth of presence, the depth of passion that we have for this earth. And like Mary Magdalene, hold a vigil and be a sacred witness to everything we will encounter. Because we just don't know what is going to happen next. That's what I'm doing, trying to do. Just be very graceful, very discerning, very loving of both sides, people, police, and extreme, like Thecla. It's 2 seconds to midnight, and this is not my time. It's like I want to hold that level of fire in my heart. If she can do it, I can give it a bloody good go.
Mm. Thank you so much for being a part of Pleasure as Prayer. For our viewers, you are offering a free gift. Would you like to share about that?
Absolutely. It is a transmission into that terrain where we can start to feel the fringes of that holy ecstasy. So I'm going to record myself going into it with you, for you, as you, so that you can have a little taste yourself of just how passionate the divine can be. She says, almost blowing her candle out.
Glorious. Thank you so much, Anaiya, for taking this time with me It's so beautiful to know that you're there in France. I'm here in Portland, Oregon. We are sharing this sweet moment together for the benefit of all beings.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. Really and truly, thank you for inviting me on. And just to chat with you again is just such a gift.
Thank you. Thank you. Same. Same.
Mm.